In the first part of our chapter, we've seen Abram confronted with a crisis. Secondly, we've seen signs that he's growing. In the remainder of the chapter, we're going to see these signs of growth confirmed. After defeating the 4 kings and rescuing Lot, 2 kings come out to meet Abram. It's the king of Sodom and Melchizedek, the king of Salem. These 2 men stand in complete contrast. Melchizedek is a priest of the Most High God, we're told, on the one hand, and the other is the king of the wicked city of Sodom on the other. It's a big moment. Who will Abram fall in with? Melchizedek approaches Abram with bread and wine. That's biblical shorthand, which means a meal. He's providing Abram with a banquet to celebrate the victory that he's just won. He blesses Abram in the name of God, saying, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hands." Notice what he's saying. He's saying that God, who hasn't even been mentioned in this chapter, is actually the hero of everything that's happened. God delivered your enemies into your hands. Abram's met a man who blesses him in God's name, but also reminds him that ultimately the battle belongs to the Lord. Abram responds positively to Melchizedek. He gives him 1/10 of the plunder that he has won in battle. By giving 1/10 of the plunder to a priest of God, Abram's sending a signal. He's saying that I understand that God's given me victory in this battle, and I understand that everything I have is from God. It's worth pausing for a moment here to think about how God's people give to God. Abram, as I say, was happy to give 1/10 of his plunder to Melchizedek because he understands that everything that he has is from God. He understood that everything that he possesses is a gift. It's still the same today. Followers of Jesus Christ give sacrificially of their income because they understand that everything they have is a gift. In the final analysis, even our earnings aren't earned. We're not self-made the way we like to think. Our physical strength is a gift from God. The intellect that we use in our work, that too is a gift. We simply make use of these gifts for the duration of our lives by God's grace. People who understand that God's given them everything, find it a privilege to return the favor and give to God. In contrast to Melchizedek's feast and blessing, the king of Sodom approaches Abram with no hospitality or even welcome. And when he finally does speak to him in verse 21, he's bossing Abram around. He says, "Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. The people are mine, the stuff can be yours." Abram won't accept the goods from him. He doesn't want this pagan king's wealth. He knows what would happen if he took it. The king of Sodom would claim that he had played his part in making Abram great. The true servant of God doesn't need human patronage. Abram knows that it's God and God alone who's making something of him. So he gives the king of Sodom a wide berth. Just before we wrap up this morning, I want to take one last look at this mysterious character, Melchizedek. That name means King of Righteousness. We're told that he's the king of Salem. Salem's derived from the Hebrew word shalom, which if you have come across it before, you might know it means peace or complete wholeness. So this guy is the king of righteousness and peace. Isn't that quite something? We're told in verse 18 that he's a priest of the Most High. Now that's weird. It's going to be another 500 years before God gives his people instructions on how to institute a priesthood. But here we have, from out of nowhere, a priest of the Most High. What does that even mean? I'm not going to try and answer those questions this morning. What I'm going to do is take you for a moment to the place in the New Testament where Melchizedek's role in God's story is explored further. It's in chapter 7 of Hebrews. You might well know that the book of Hebrews has a melody line that runs right through it. And the core message of the book is that Jesus is greater. He's greater than all the elements of the Hebrew faith which he's come to fulfill. At one point in his argument in chapter 7, the author starts talking about Jesus in terms of this mysterious Melchizedek. Jesus, he says, has become a high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. The writer goes on to explain what he has in mind. He says that Melchizedek was without father or mother, without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life. Like the Son of God, he remains a priest forever. Now, I want you to forget for a second that strange stuff about Melchizedek's origins. The main point the writer's making is that Melchizedek is a priest forever, and that Jesus is like him. What the writer's really trying to do is to show us how Jesus is greater than all the Levitical priests who'd served at the temple in Jerusalem. He says there have been many of those priests since death prevented them from continuing in office. But because Jesus lives forever, he has a permanent priesthood. Therefore, he is able to save completely those who come to God through him, because he always lives to intercede for them. Do you get that, brothers and sisters? We've been thinking here this morning about growth. We've seen how Abram's grown in his faith in the living God. We're wondering whether that growth would be possible for us too. We can grow. You can, I can, and here's why. We have a great high priest. He's bringing our needs to God just now. He's able to save us completely. He's able to save us in all the ways that we need to be saved. His name is Jesus. And he'll be our priest forever. Isn't that just glorious? Knowing that he is for us, that he'll never give up working for us. Doesn't that just flood you with hope? Doesn't that just make you want to live by faith and grow in Jesus? It's been wonderful to see in these last couple of chapters how Abram's been growing, how he's been learning to live by faith. Friends, that's what God wants for you too. Nothing in your life is more important than you growing in likeness to Jesus. God's using these events in Abram's life to forge in him a deep and a steadfast faith. In the same way, he wants to use these circumstances in our lives. He wants to use today and tomorrow and this week and this month and this year to make something of us. Do you believe that? Are you ready to believe that God is at work in you today? Be encouraged. Embrace this truth. Live out of its reality. Keep in step now with the Spirit of Jesus that's working in you to grow you. Let's sing together just now, praising Jesus our great high priest, before the throne of God above.